Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
I never saw it coming. Not like that. Not with a line so cold, so sharp it cut through 15 years of sweat and sacrifice like a knife through paper. Jacob, you're just not trying hard enough anymore. Those were the words Maxwell Crane, my boss and the so-called CEO of Orion Nexus, said to me in his sleek glass office overlooking downtown Salt Lake City. 15 years I'd poured my life into this company. 15 years of early mornings, late nights, missed birthdays, broken promises to my own family. And he told me I wasn't trying hard enough? I sat there stunned. The sunlight streaming through the windows felt harsh, almost mocking. Maxwell's face was unreadable, like a judge delivering a sentence I never saw coming. He didn't say, "Jacob, we appreciate your work, but..." "No," he said. "The board has made a unanimous decision. We need someone younger, more dynamic. Someone hungrier." I blinked, disbelieving. I was the one who'd brought in nearly half the company's revenue last quarter. 45%. I was the one who'd saved the company from drowning when deals fell through and projects crashed. I was the one who knew this business better than anyone. But none of that mattered. I wanted to argue, to stand up and prove them wrong. But I realized that this wasn't about facts or numbers. It was about power. About throwing me away because I was inconvenient, because I was no longer a shiny new toy. Maxwell's voice was calm, almost clinical, as if reading a script he'd practiced 1,000 times. "Jacob, you've been invaluable, but it's time to move on." I didn't say a word. Instead, I stood slowly, collected my belongings with deliberate care. My leather briefcase, scuffed and worn from years of travel. My laptop, filled with plans and projects that had never seen the light of day. And a framed photo of my daughter, Mia, her smile wide and innocent, a reminder of everything I was fighting for outside these cold walls. As I packed, I felt the eyes of my coworkers on me. Some looked away, others stared, unable to mask their shock. Rachel, my closest ally in the office, gave me a look that said, "I'm sorry," without a word. But I didn't want their pity. I wanted my dignity. The walk out of the office felt surreal. The familiar hum of the place, the ringing phones, the tapping keyboards, the murmur of colleagues in meetings, felt like a world I no longer belonged to. Outside, the air was sharp and clean, but it bit at my skin like reality itself. The skyline of Salt Lake City rose before me, majestic yet indifferent. The Wasatch Mountains loomed in the distance, silent witnesses to my downfall. But even in that moment of loss, something stirred inside me, a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Because no one could take away what I'd done here. No one could erase the years I'd dedicated, the battles I'd won. I walked away, my back straight, my head held high. I didn't look back. Not once. Because sometimes, losing everything is just the beginning. The morning after I walked out of Orion Nexus, the world seemed completely normal, like nothing had changed. The sun rose over the Wasatch Mountains just as it always did, casting golden light on the city streets below. But inside me, everything felt cracked, fractured, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I sat at my kitchen table in my small apartment in Salt Lake City's Avenues neighborhood, staring blankly at a black cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. My hands trembled slightly as I wrapped them around the ceramic mug, trying to steady my thoughts. I kept replaying Maxwell's words in my head. "You're not trying hard enough." It wasn't just the words, but the way he said them, like I was a problem to be discarded, a worn-out tool. It stung worse than any failure I'd ever faced. My phone lay face down on the table, silent and still. For hours, I ignored every vibration, every buzz, telling myself I needed space, time to think, to breathe. I stared at the framed photo of Mia on the shelf, her bright eyes full of hope, her smile reminding me why I had fought so hard for a future that now felt uncertain. And then, when I least expected it, the phone rang. My heart jumped. I looked at the screen, Maxwell Crane. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to ignore the call like I'd ignored every email, every message since I left the office. But curiosity and something deeper, a flicker of old loyalty, made me answer. Jake. Maxwell's voice was unsteady, almost desperate. We've got a massive problem. The new guy messed up the Thompson deal, the one worth nearly $10 million. The system's crashing, client calls are piling up, and without you, we're dead in the water. I swallowed hard, a mix of emotions swirling inside me, anger, satisfaction, disbelief. For 15 years, I'd been the pillar holding this company up. And now, without me, it was crumbling. Maxwell, I said slowly, deliberately, that ship has sailed. There was silence on the other end. Then a faint, defeated, please, Jake, we need you. I didn't respond. I ended the call. For the first time in years, I felt free. The day stretched ahead, empty yet full of possibilities. I pulled out a blank notebook and began to write, not ideas for Orion Nexus, but plans for my future. Austin, Texas. I'd visited once, a few years back. The energy there was contagious, a city bursting with startups, tech innovators, and people who didn't just talk about change, but built it. It was a place where age wasn't a liability, and experience wasn't ignored. A place where I could start fresh. I mapped out what it would take. Selling my apartment, closing out my affairs here. Finding a new job or maybe even starting my own company. Networking with old contacts. Rebuilding my life. Fear bubbled beneath the surface. The uncertainty. The risk. But stronger than that was determination. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. That night, I sat on my balcony, looking out over the city lights. Salt Lake City had been my home for 2 decades, but now, it felt like a chapter that had closed. Ahead lay a blank page, and this time, I would write the story on my terms. The days after that phone call with Maxwell felt like I was caught between 2 worlds. The life I was leaving behind and the uncertain future ahead. I woke up each morning with a knot in my stomach, but also a strange, thrilling sense of possibility. This was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming my life. The first step was talking to Mia. She's 21, studying environmental science in Denver, and for all her independence, she's still my little girl. When I told her about losing my job, her voice cracked with worry. Dad, are you okay? What are you going to do? I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. I'm going to start over, Mia. Somewhere new. Somewhere I can breathe. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, I'm with you, Dad. No matter what. Her words gave me strength I didn't know I had. Packing up my life was harder than I imagined. I'd lived in my Salt Lake City apartment for over a decade, walls filled with memories, trophies, reminders of battles fought and won. But it was time to let go. I boxed up my things with a strange mix of nostalgia and relief. The leather briefcase with all my work documents. The framed photo of Mia, smiling from a summer vacation. My worn-out shoes, a testament to the miles I'd walked chasing deadlines and deals. The apartment sold quickly, hot market, they said. I took the money and bought a one-way ticket to Austin, Texas. The city was buzzing with energy and promise, a stark contrast to the suffocating silence I left behind. I'd been there once, at a conference, and remembered the streets lined with murals, the cafes brimming with people who seemed alive with ideas. As the plane lifted off from Salt Lake City, I looked out the window at the shrinking cityscape, the mountains, the streets, the offices where I'd spent so much of my life. A swirl of emotions crashed over me, loss, regret, but above all, hope. Austin welcomed me like a fresh canvas. The air smelled different, warmer, filled with possibility. I found a modest apartment in East Austin, a neighborhood alive with artists and startups. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The hardest part was finding work. Despite years of experience, my age became an invisible barrier. I sent out resumes to dozens of companies, followed up on cold calls, and networked relentlessly at meetups and industry events. Rejection emails piled up, and sometimes I caught the subtle tone. We appreciate your experience, but we're looking for someone younger. But I refused to be broken. Every No fueled my resolve. One afternoon, after a long day of interviews that ended in polite declines, I received a call that shifted everything. It was from Serafina Lang, the CEO of Vortex Dynamics, a rising startup focused on renewable energy tech. Her voice was confident, direct, and unlike anyone else's. "We've heard about your work, Jacob. I want to meet." That meeting felt like the first true step toward rebuilding my life. She wasn't looking for age or empty promises. She wanted results, passion, and experience. I was ready to give it all. Meeting Serafina Lang was unlike any professional encounter I'd ever had. The moment I stepped into the airy, industrial chic office of Vortex Dynamics, a converted warehouse space humming with quiet energy, I knew this was different. No sterile boardrooms, no corporate posturing. Just raw ambition, bright minds, and a palpable hunger to change the world. Serafina was exactly what I expected and more. In her early 40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through you, she carried herself with a quiet authority. Her voice was steady but passionate, every word carefully measured yet charged with conviction. "I've read your portfolio," she said without preamble. "Your track record at Orion Nexus is impressive. But more than that, I want to know what drives you now." I took a deep breath. This wasn't just an interview. It was a test of everything I'd become since that brutal day in Maxwell's office. "I'm driven by the chance to build something meaningful," I said, looking her in the eye. "To work with people who believe experience isn't a liability, but an asset. To contribute to a vision bigger than myself." She smiled, a brief, genuine flash. "Good. Because Vortex isn't just another startup. We're trying to revolutionize renewable energy, create tech that actually changes lives." We talked for hours. Strategy, technology, leadership. I laid out ideas for streamlining product development, for building scalable sales teams, for forging partnerships with key players in the industry. For once, I felt heard, valued, needed. Within a week, they offered me the role of Chief Operations Officer. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance to rebuild my legacy. The work was brutal. Long days, endless meetings, the kind of pressure that would have broken me years ago. But now, every challenge was fuel. Every setback, a lesson. I leaned on the lessons I'd learned the hard way, the importance of integrity, the power of resilience, the value of a team that trusted each other. I worked to create a culture where ideas trumped ego, where experience and innovation walked hand in hand. Slowly, Vortex started to grow. We landed our first major contract with a municipal energy provider. The team expanded. And with every success, I felt my confidence return, stronger than ever. At night, after long hours, I'd call Mia. I told her about the progress, the setbacks, the victories. She cheered me on, proud of the man I was becoming, proud that I refused to let failure define me. Austin wasn't just a new city, it was home. One evening, standing on my apartment balcony, the city lights twinkling below, I thought back to that day at Orion Nexus. Maxwell's cold dismissal had felt like the end of everything. But it was only the beginning. I realized something crucial. Dignity isn't something you lose because someone tells you you're not good enough. It's something you carry with you, no matter what. And success? It tastes sweeter when it's earned on your own terms. The months that followed felt like a whirlwind, a mix of relentless work, fragile hope, and hard-won progress. Vortex Dynamics was no longer just a startup with a big dream. It was becoming a force to reckon with. Every deal we closed, every product milestone we hit, was a testament not just to the company's potential, but to my own journey. I remember the day we signed the contract with Green Grid Energy, a regional provider eager to pilot our revolutionary battery storage system. That deal wasn't just about money, it was validation. Proof that my vision, my leadership mattered. That experience, the kind that Maxwell dismissed like it was yesterday's news, was exactly what turned skeptics into believers. But it wasn't easy. Late nights spent poring over technical specs, endless calls negotiating terms, managing a team still learning to trust me. It tested every ounce of my patience and resolve. There were days when exhaustion threatened to swallow me whole. The sting of my past failures still lurked in the background, a quiet voice whispering doubt. Yet I refused to listen. Instead, I focused on the team, building relationships grounded in respect and transparency. I encouraged innovation, but insisted on accountability. I shared my story openly, not as a tale of defeat, but as a lesson in resilience. That honesty forged bonds. People weren't just working for a paycheck. They were working for something bigger. One night, after a grueling 14-hour day, I found myself sitting alone in the office, staring at a wall covered with plans, timelines, and blueprints. My phone buzzed, a text from Mia. "Dad, I'm so proud of you. You're unstoppable." I smiled, the fatigue melting away. Her faith was my anchor. As Vortex Dynamics grew, so did my confidence. I was no longer the man Maxwell had discarded. I was a leader, a creator, a man who had turned betrayal into triumph. I even reached out to former colleagues who had doubted me, extending a hand not for revenge, but to show that integrity and success could coexist. Some responded with warmth, others with silence. It didn't matter. I was moving forward. One particular moment stands out. At a tech conference in Austin, I stood on a panel alongside industry giants, sharing insights about the future of clean energy. As I spoke, I caught a familiar face in the audience, someone from Orion Nexus, now a mid-level manager, looking surprised and maybe even a little unsettled. I held my head high. Because this was more than just business. This was redemption. This was the moment where I reclaimed my dignity, not by tearing others down, but by building myself up, stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. Standing here now years later, I sometimes pinch myself, wondering how far I've come. From that cold day in Maxwell's office, to the uncertain flight to Austin, to the relentless grind that reshaped my future, it's been one hell of a journey. Austin isn't just a city to me anymore. It's home. The vibrant neighborhoods, the hum of innovation, the warmth of the people. I've built a life here that feels authentic, that reflects who I really am. I launched my own consulting firm last year, True North Strategies, helping emerging companies navigate growth without losing their soul. The name wasn't accidental. It's a reminder to stay true to my values, no matter what storms come. I'm busier than ever, but this time, I choose the work I do. Not because someone else demands it, but because it matters to me. Mia visits often. We laugh, talk late into the night about her studies, my projects, and the crazy twists life throws at us. She tells me she's proud, not just of my success, but of my courage to start over. Sometimes I think about Maxwell, the man who dismissed me, who thought age and experience were liabilities. I don't harbor anger anymore. That chapter is closed. I learned that dignity can't be taken away by someone else's opinion. It's something you carry, a quiet strength that guides you through the darkest times. My story isn't just about losing a job or finding a new one. It's about reclaiming myself, refusing to be defined by others, and forging a path that's mine alone. I won't pretend it was easy. The doubts, the setbacks, the nights filled with uncertainty, they were real. But they made the victories sweeter. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away, it's this. No matter how hard life knocks you down, your dignity, your worth, and your future are yours to shape. And sometimes, losing everything is just the beginning of something far greater.